What's up, everybody? Appreciate you hanging out with us on this Wednesday. We are Sports Take, Jacob Sports YouTube Network. That's Derek. I am Rob. Always fun hanging with you. Love our next guest. I love his insight. Check him out every single day, whether it's CBS Sports or on X or Twitter. But you could follow him on Twitter at Jeff Kerr CBS. Our guy Jeff Kerr. What's happening, Jer?
What up?
My man Britton Covey is back on the practice squad, boys.
Covey, Devin Allen. We're getting the gang back together, Jeff.
Crash Covey, baby.
I'm not surprised, honestly. Aaron Siposs, though, I wasn't surprised they cut him. I was surprised that he wasn't on the initial 53, but I was like you, Gunner. I was saying the Eagles punter wasn't on the roster the whole preseason. That will punt in week 1.
Yeah, not a surprise. And you see, too, Pittsburgh had 2 guys on their roster who were punters. They released one of them. There's other guys who were cut who had veteran experience. We're probably going to hear something by the end of the day, Jeff, or tomorrow, I would guess, about a punter. Don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, the Steelers have 2 punters. You would think that's the logical trade piece. I mean, Who keeps 2 on the 53?
Right.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It tells me the Steelers haven't decided between the 2, but I believe they just cut one of them.
Yeah, Braden Mann just got released.
They just got Mann. Okay, maybe that's the guy.
Yeah, could be. Yeah. Anything surprise you though? Take Siposs out of it. Take any other spot, whether it's special teams, defense, or offense.
I think that I shouldn't be surprised, but I was kind of stunned they kept 7 defensive tackles. I thought they'd find a way to maybe cut Kadavius Street just because. And bring him back just because they wouldn't have to guarantee his salary, vested veteran, and do some roster gymnastics with Moro Ojomo. But then he practiced this week. So I should have changed my 53, but I already sent that in. So I was stuck with 6 there. Ricks, I wasn't shocked, made the roster. I thought he earned that spot over the past week. But I thought they maybe put Goodrich on waivers and then try to get him back. But he had a good preseason too. And I think everybody knows the Eagles have talent. And I think Howie Roseman looked at it as well. None of you guys are getting our guys.
Jeff, if there was one minor surprise, I would have to say when Nicholas Morrow was signed here, he was already penciled in as a starting will. And all of a sudden he worked his way not down the depth chart, but all the way off this roster. I thought that was a little surprising.
I think they actually bring him back, D-Gun. I think that's a guy that, I think that's a guy that he was either going to start or get cut. That was my philosophy the first week of camp, but they need depth there. And I just don't see who right now is better than him that they can bring in. I mean, is Van Summerlin going to play for them? No. So you might as well bring in Morrow and have a depth signing.
Yeah, he's definitely a learn as he goes. But he showed him a lot, Van Summerlin. I think you look at him maybe next year if that's the case. Are you surprised? They are pretty light on the outside as far as linebackers go, Jeff. Is that just philosophical? Is that the way that they're built because it's not as critical a position? What'd you make of that?
I think they look at it as, okay, we cross-trained Patrick Johnson there, we cross-trained Nolan Smith there, maybe Hassan Red can play there. I doubt that's going to happen just because of the thumb thing. But if you're teaching Nolan Smith, if you're teaching a bunch of these guys, maybe they play that box nickel where they go 3 safeties there and you don't have to worry about. That's why I thought they were going to keep 5 safeties. I thought maybe Kayvon Wallace would be part of that equation. By the way, I don't know if you guys have heard the same thing I have. Maybe you have, Gunner, but I don't think Kayvon Wallace is coming back here. Teams are interested.
Yeah, he's going to get snagged up. It wouldn't surprise me one bit.
Yeah. The Colts, it seems like they're going to be the team, but we'll see. I mean, obviously it's too early to tell, but I think that was another shocker too. Kayvon Wallace. I thought maybe the Eagles would keep him, but I get it. It's year 4. It's time to move on. Justin Evans had a good summer. Reed Blankenship, he's the starter. Sidney Brown's going to play. We all know that. Terrell Edmonds they've liked him for years. So it doesn't shock me they were the 4. It's just how they did it. And obviously Albert O threw everybody in the loop.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Big time. I'll tell you, it also tells me they trust, these guys special teams wise as well. Whether it's Ricks, Mario Goodrich, or some of the guys that you just referenced, that's also a big piece of this thing. That when you're at the bottom of the roster or 3rd or 4th on a depth chart, if you're going to be on the 53, you better be able to play teams, and that's, we know how critical that can be.
And I think that's why after the first week of the preseason, I thought Mekhi Garner earned himself a roster spot. Now, granted, I think he's going to end up on the practice squad.
Yeah.
Because that's one of those guys that play well in special teams. And Ricks did too. I think Ricks honestly earned his roster spot, and he told me this. This was his favorite play of the night when he blocked for Devin Allen on the 73-yard kickoff return.
Right.
He had 2 blocks there. I think that was where it was kind of like the Vince Papale thing. Remember in Invincible, that's what got you noticed, the play on special teams. And it just seemed like that's how Eli Ricks made the roster. Oh, he's also a pretty good cornerback.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I will also add this. Michael Clay cannot afford to rely on too many young players on special teams because he is definitely on a hot seat this season.
I thought he was on the hot seat last year. I'll tell you what, I would have cut Sippus right after the Super Bowl. Everybody likes to blame Gannon.
Yes.
And I'll blame him too. But look, the defense got a short field because of a bad punt that led to a Kadarius Toney punt return. If anybody knows anything about special teams, you knew the coverage was bad there. So you didn't have your gunner wasn't in position. You were done there. So that's a short field. That brought the Chiefs back into it. And we can't ignore the Jalen Hurts fumble. I mean, we can't. As well as he played in that Super Bowl, that pretty much was 14 points. But I'll still blame Jonathan Gannon for the most part. But Aaron Sippus, I would have just got rid of him right after that game.
It is. It's the shame of it is Hurts almost played a perfect game. I mean, honestly, man, it was like, you give up a one hitter, and the one hitter's a 3-run shot, and you lose 3-2. Like that's what it felt like. As good as he was,
it's a fluke play too. I told Jody Mack and John McMullen, 99 times out of 100 he doesn't fumble that football.
Yeah.
It's just crazy.
Yeah, it is. All right. Bailey Zappi, by the way, has cleared waivers and a return to the team on the practice squad is likely, according to Field Yates. That would be nice, Jeff, because the Patriots right now have 1 quarterback on the roster.
I think that was the biggest shocker of every team's 53-man rosters. And I noticed this when I was just looking at it. I'm like, wait, who? And they even cut Malik Cunningham.
Yeah, I'm surprised by that. Zappi's solid, too. I think he's okay as a backup.
Wouldn't it be interesting if they told these teams that the NFL found a way in the new CBA to tell them, by the way, your initial 53-man roster, that's what you got to go into week 1.
That would change the way a lot of this is done.
Yeah, you can still do the waiver claims, but you got to tell these guys, hey, look, you can claim these guys on waivers, but they can't play week 1. It's the Eagles definitely would have Aaron Sippus as their punter. I know that.
How do you view the roster here, Jeff? Is it, in your estimation, from when the clock struck 0 in the Super Bowl to what it is now? Do you feel like they're better, worse, the same? Is it a TBD for you? Where do you fall with that?
I think they're better. Because one, the quarterback's better. I mean, he was better this camp than he was last camp, and I thought he was really good last camp. I think they're deeper at running back. Last year, we weren't sure behind Miles Sanders. I mean, we liked Kenny Gainwell. We weren't sure what Kenny Gainwell was going to bring. I think Boston Scott is better. I think Rashad Penny and DeAndre Swift are an excellent upgrade. Albert O makes them better at tight end. They only got 4 receivers, but I like all 4. So we got to go there. Offensive line, the depth isn't there. Defensive line, the depth's better. Linebacker's not as strong, off-ball linebacker. Cornerback, they're deeper. I think they're actually deeper at safety than they were last year, but they don't have the top-end talent. So, and obviously we don't know about special teams, but if you're going based on all this, I would say it's better.
Jeff, I knew Trey Sermon wasn't going to make the 53, but what do you think his future is? Do you think they try to hide him on the practice squad, or they basically tell him, hey, look, thank you for your services. Good luck to you in future endeavors?
Did he go on waived injured by any chance? Did they place him on there?
They did a waive injured, yes.
Yeah, so maybe that's what they're going to do with him. I mean, because I know he injured himself in that preseason game. So I think that's what they're hoping. I mean, maybe he'll get a chance to contribute this year. But remember, they stashed him pretty much all last year to develop. And you know how running backs work, that they're going to get injured. So I think there's still room for him.
So, Jeff, as we look at it right now, you mentioned the tight end. Give us a little background on the trade that they made to bring in Albert O. I like the way you go with that. That's better for me too. But Albert O is a big man. He is a big cat. So what does this mean for either Calcaterra or Stoll? Is somebody headed to the practice squad, do you think?
I think someone's going to be a victim of roster gymnastics here because you're going to have to bring in a punter. You're going to have to bring in a punt returner. You're probably going to have to bring in an off-ball linebacker at some point. I know you can elevate guys, but maybe Jack Stoll's is the guy. I know that Jalen Hurts trusts Jack Stoll, but Albert O, he's not a great blocker, but he can block, and that's another weapon on offense. Maybe that's why they went 4 receivers. So By the way, here's an interesting stat for you guys. You know his highest career receiving yards in the game is against the Eagles?
Alberto.
Yeah, in 2021.
Interesting.
He tore apart against defense that game. I think he had like, I got to rewatch the tape of that game. I think he had like a 40-some yard catch in there. It was like 77 yards.
Why was he available?
Denver was going to waive him, and he was injured most of the preseason. And they got Greg Dulcich at tight end. They got a couple guys there, and it was pretty much Howie Roseman called and said, "Well, we're not going to be able to get this guy. He just had 7 catches for 109 yards in the last preseason game. Because Eagles were 31st in waiver claim. Hey, we'll give this up for him." So, right. I mean, that's what people seem to forget here. The Eagles are 31st in waivers, so there's a reason why they're protecting guys.
Yeah, you got to wait. You're going to be waiting a while. Hey, by the way, Kayvon Wallace has been grabbed up by the Cardinals. Jonathan Gannon.
Jonathan Gannon, baby.
There you go.
Isaiah Simmons for Kayvon Wallace.
Lottery pick Gannon.
By the way, that team is – I'm doing the ceiling and floor for all 32 teams right now, and the Cardinals were first up. They're going to be terrible. Absolutely terrible.
I see 2 wins, Jeff.
I think my ceiling was 5, and I said they don't even want the ceiling. They want the floor. They want 0-17.
But here's the problem with
that. You looked at their schedule?
Yeah, they're going to get their rear ends handed to them.
Oh, but yeah, they are.
Their problem is there's too much guaranteed money for Kyler Murray for the next 3 years. Like, can you still conceivably draft Caleb Williams if that's the case?
I think you can. I just think you eat it. I mean, the Eagles found a way to eat it.
This is bigger than Wentz, though, in terms of what they're going to be eating.
It is true. I mean, but how desperate will teams get? Like, Kirk Cousins is going to be a free agent.
Yeah.
Did the Cowboys get involved? Did the whole
Trey Lance
doesn't
now
work? Yeah, I know. It's funny how the Cowboys create unnecessary drama for themselves.
They do. That's a good way to put it. Yep.
And I've been saying Dak's got to be on the lookout this year because he doesn't have a contract, and I don't think he was too pleased with how the last contract worked out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we'll see.
All right. So the Colts get Josh Sills. So then again, familiarity, with Steichen being there and, knowing of Sills.
That was the guy I thought the Eagles would keep just because they kept him and supported him through the whole allegations and everything else. And by the way, they cut Sua Opeta last year in favor of him, and Opeta was a veteran. I know Opeta had a good camp, but I'm like, I think they could see this through. And maybe I would have won the 53-man pool if I would have kept Sua Opeta over Josh.
And what is it? All you guys do a little competition now. Who ended up winning?
There was a tie. There was a 7-way tie. It was like between BLG, ESP, Kempski. There's a couple. I think a couple of them were in there. I know I did not win. I think Kempski scored me at 48 or 49. I forget. I gave myself 46. I'm not a high grader.
Okay. All right.
You surprised Barnett is still here?
Yes and no. So talking to people in that camp, I know he wants more opportunities, but the Eagles also talked to him and said, "Hey, look, we value you a lot more than other teams do." I think the Eagles really like Derek Barnett. In fact, they've openly admitted they like Derek Barnett. And I think Derek Barnett's going to play a huge role for them this year. I said, I'd rather have Derek Barnett than not have Derek Barnett.
Yeah, I mean, look, I look at it this way. As frustrating as he can be, and he is definitely frustrating at times, that's great depth that you have a guy like that. And, as much as I think somebody as young as Barnett might not like it, the rotation works and keeps guys fresh. And it allows you to thrive. Look at Brandon Graham last year with the amount of snaps and the success that he had. And I'm not saying Barnett is Brandon Graham before everybody starts losing their mind. I'm just saying the rotation keeps you. It's like fastballs, as Andy Reid used to say.
Is it the worst thing in the world to have a guy with 21 and a half career sacks as your 4th or 5th edge rusher?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
When people look at Barnett, they keep looking at the mental gaffes. And I understand that. But there is an upside to what he brings to a defense. He's still young. He's at a favorable salary cap price for this team. He knows the city. He knows the organization. He has some value, and I understand people want to get rid of him. But, considering what I equate this to Brandon Graham. Look at Brandon Graham, how he struggled early on in his career. People wanted to run Brandon Graham out of town. And I give the Eagles kudos because they didn't buckle to outside pressure and they let Brandon Graham grow. Now, I'm not saying Barnett's going to be here 12, 13 years, but they still have some value. They've openly told us time and time again that they like this guy and he has some value to this team.
I think Eagles fans need to realize this. Just compare Derek Barnett to what Robert Quinn gave you last year. Robert Quinn gave you absolutely nothing, and you gave up a 4th-round pick for him. I guarantee you Derek Barnett does more for this football team than Robert Quinn did last year.
Yeah, let's hope. I mean, it'd be almost a bit.
All he needs is a sack, really.
Jeff, I think you will provide more to the Eagles this year than that was a 4th rounder, like you said.
You know what? I haven't rushed the passer in 15 years, but I'm faster than I was in high school.
I'll say this. I will give props to D Gunn on this one. When they made the move, he said, careful what you wish for with this one, because he talked to some of the Chicago folks, and they weren't exactly real thrilled with what Bobby Quinn was giving them last year. But yeah.
look what happened to him this all season too. I'll tell you what, talking to him as much as I did last year, I would never guess that in a million years that what he was accused of.
Yeah, he never had a bad rep as a
no,
guy.
Yeah, but coming here, he went into the witness protection program. You never heard from him.
Yeah.
No, like I remember I would see him sitting after games, like at the end of his locker, and he just say, "Hey man, I'd love to talk, I just can't." And obviously because he's injured, and you just want to know what happened. I mean, you gave a 4th-round pick for him. Now, if the Eagles would get offered a 4th-round pick for Barnett, I think they would take it. But again, I think they value Derek Barnett much more than other teams do, or anybody.
Mm-hmm. Looking at the NFC here, Jeff, the Cowboys, as you mentioned, unnecessary drama they create for themselves, but there's also the Niners. There's teams like the Lions. Who's in your, who's on your list here in terms of the teams that you see competing with the Eagles here?
So, I mean, I would say Dallas. I think Dallas is going to be really good. I don't think Dak Prescott's going to throw 17 interceptions, like including the postseason, like he did last year.
Right.
I love the Brandon Cooks move. I love the Gilmore move.
Yep.
They're already loaded. I expect Dallas to win 12 games this year. It's just, unfortunately, they're like the Sixers. Come see me in the divisional round, and then we'll talk. And
very similar.
And it's a shame, really, because it's a really good football team, but they just can't get over that hump. And if they do, they're probably going to meet the Eagles in the conference title game. We're going to be honest. The 49ers, I love the team. Still not sold on Purdy yet, but I think he's good, and I think anybody can play in that offense. The sleeper team for me, Seattle.
Yeah, I mean, what they did last year, Geno Smith comfortable in the system, Bobby Wagner going back there among some other things. They get Jamal Adams, healthy now. I mean, yeah, Seattle's definitely a team to watch for sure. I think they're going to give the Niners some fits in that division.
They had more firepower at wide receiver.
Yep. Yeah, they got JSN, so I like that. I think their offensive line's a lot better with Lucas and Cross. It's funny. Lucas was their 5th-round pick, and he might be better than their 1st-round pick, who was Cross. So, which is crazy. Bobby Wagner's back. Jamal Adams is pretty much a backup on this team, and he's highly paid. I mean, they're loaded. I mean, they got Devin Witherspoon. Kobe Bryant's moving to safety now. It's they got Reek Gardner. Reek Wood. Sorry.
What a job! John Schneider, their GM. What a job he did.
The last 2 drafts, it feels like. Of the teams that have hit home runs the last 2 drafts, obviously getting Woolen in the 5th round was huge for them. I mean, yeah, John Snyder's done an excellent job. Oh, by the way, he got a ton back for Russell Wilson, who is has not been good.
Yep. Do you think he'll rebound, Jeff?
I don't think he can be any worse than he was last year. You know what? I was one of the guys who had no problem with Sean Payton breaking the code and saying how bad of a coach Nathaniel Hackett was, because he was. I mean, he just said what the elephant in the room is. Nathaniel Hackett was out of his gourd from week 1 on. He might have had the worst head coaching job in history. And I mean, we've seen some bad coaching jobs in Philadelphia before. I mean, for those you older Eagles fans, you probably remember how bad the Swamp Fox was as a head
terrible.
Coach.
He was just not equipped to be a head coach. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That was Nathaniel Hackett. It seems like he can only work with Aaron Rodgers, and that was the guy they wanted to bring to Denver, and they couldn't do it, so they settled on him. And they had so many injuries last year, a lot of key positions, but Denver's one of those teams, like, even at their ceiling, I still don't think they're as good as the Chiefs or the Chargers, but they could sneak in as a playoff team, but they can't be worse than they were last year.
Jeff, would you look at a team like the Saints as a sleeper team in the NFC?
Yeah. So I was going to mention that to you, D-Gun. I think the Saints could be like last year's Vikings. They have a very soft schedule. The NFC South isn't good. They could be that team that wins 12, 13 games, and you're going to say to yourself, well, how did they do that? Well, you're playing Tampa twice, you're playing Carolina twice, you're playing Atlanta twice. Their out of conference schedule really isn't that great. And Derek Carr is a massive upgrade over Jameis Winston for however way you want to spin it.
Right.
I love their young talent, by the way. Chris Olave is a stud. And if Michael Thomas becomes anything close to what he used to be,
Right.
and Jawan Johnson, you got to watch out for him at tight end. Their defense is usually good. The only thing I don't like about the Saints is their head coach.
Yeah, Dennis Allen's the big question, right?
He stinks. He's a terrible head coach. How do these guys get jobs? 2 jobs.
Yeah, he's another guy who falls into the category of he's a fine coordinator, but it just feels, doesn't he just scream of underwhelming? Like, it's just like, all right, Dennis
He's
Allen.
bland, too. He's no Sean Payton. I'll say that. Sean Payton will be like, good question. Or, oh, yeah, I'm going to say what's on my mind because I'm Sean Payton. I don't care.
Sean Payton's got a lot of Parcells in him.
Yeah, well, you could tell he worked for You could tell he worked for Ray Rhodes at one point, too.
Yes. Yeah, he's been under some pretty outspoken cats during his time. That's for sure.
Dennis Allen's very, very vanilla.
Yeah. Are you buying the Lion hype train?
Yes. Give me Dan Campbell. Look, I want to see a Lion at practice. That's how bad I want to see the Lions succeed right now. But I believe in Jared Goff a lot more than most people. I'm still worried about them in terms of depth at receiver because Jameson Williams is suspended. But Amon-Ra St. Brown's a stud. They're relying on a lot of rookies this year. Sam Laporta, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jack Campbell. Their secondary's good. Aiden Hutchinson was phenomenal last year. James Houston's good. Mm-hmm. I mean, this team got talent. When people pick them to win the NFC North back in May, I'm not surprised by that. But again, it all depends on how well Jordan Love does in Green Bay.
Mm-hmm. What are we to make of this Washington team with this unknown Sam Howell and Eric Bieniemy calling the shots?
I'll tell you what. Find a girl who treats you like the Commanders treat Sam Howell, man. He is one of those guys, like, they are really hyping him up. And I don't know if he's good. I don't know if he's bad. But if he's as good as they say he is, they're going to be a threat because I'm telling you, watch the secondary. Emmanuel Forbes, I loved in the draft. I think he's going to be good. Cam Curl's a name to watch at safety. Their defensive line is, we know how good they are. And Chase Young's healthy, it's even better. I like their weapons at receiver. Running back, I think they'll get by with Robinson and Gibson. I think they'll be okay there. I like the team. I'll tell you what, I like the Commanders a lot better than I like the Giants right now.
Ooh,
yeah, it's interesting, Jeff. I remember we were talking about this a couple of weeks ago, and you think they may not even make the playoffs, right, New York?
Yeah, you know what? I think the Giants are a better team. I just think a lot of things are going to catch up to them. Like, you still got to play the Eagles twice. You got to play Dallas twice. The Commanders are going to be better. I mean, if Sam Howell's what they say he is, they're better. I think the Giants have a lot of 2s and 3s at receiver, and I'm being generous there. Like, Jalen Hyatt's going to be good, but not right away. Isaiah Hodgins is a good player. Darius Slayton's a good player, but they're not game changers. Darren Waller's a game changer, but if he gets hurt, what happens? Their offensive line is still
so.
Yeah, exactly. Their defense is probably going to be good because Wink Martindale's a really good coach. But can you really win games the way they won them last year, just relying on Saquon? And Saquon gets hurt again, you got to rely on Daniel Jones. I mean, seeing how good he was without Saquon Barkley. So, I mean, if I had to make a futures bet, put the Giants in last place.
Wow. Okay.
Hey, speaking of the Giants and their defense in particular, what do you think about them adding Isaiah Simmons to that defense?
I kept hearing he was going to get traded for a long time. And, they just didn't have a position for him. But that is the perfect spot. If anybody can get anything out of this guy, it's Wink Martindale.
That's right. Yep.
So that's a major upgrade for them at safety. Now, I don't know how big it's going to help them right away, but I think for the long term, Isaiah Simmons could help. I like the Giants' defensive interior. I really do. I think Dexter Lawrence is out of this world, and same with Larry Williams. But I'm curious to see if Kayvon Thibodeau takes that step this year. It always takes an edge rusher 2 or 3 years anyway. I think their defense is going to be fine. It's just it's tough because they're that team that significantly overachieved last year, and even with a bad year, they're on the upswing. But I just can't believe they gave Daniel Jones all the money they gave him.
Yeah, keep an eye on that kid, Jalen Hyatt, because he can flat out fly, and that's all they've been talking about in New York all summer is this rookie wide receiver they have coming in now, And this kid, I saw him a few times. Man, can he flat out go?
He could play at Tennessee. That was the one pick for them I fell in love with. More than John Michael Smith, who I think can be a good center for them. But, I mean, they do need a field stretcher. And if Jalen Hyatt can be a number one, I'm going to eat my words on this show. I guarantee it. But I think he's a year away from being good.
Okay.
Jeff, let me ask you, a division that really intrigues me is the AFC North. You got the Ravens. Now Lamar Jackson gets paid. You got the Bengals. Burrow's thing is up in the air right now, whether it's the calf or, it's a contract. Deshaun Watson now, with a year plus under his belt in that system. And then the Steelers, who look poised to me to take a jump here. What do you think in that division?
So this is the toughest division for me to pick out of all, because as someone who watched 2 Cleveland Browns joint practices with the Eagles, everybody wanted to talk about the Eagles and, how they looked in those practices. The Browns are pretty good. They're a good football team. They got some talent on there. But I don't know how that's going to translate when they play the Pittsburgh Steelers, who Kenny Pickett's the guy I'm projecting to take that big leap. Everybody thinks it's going to be Justin Fields. I think it's going to be Kenny Pickett because of the weapons he has. George Pickens is a stud. They got Al Robinson can't be any worse than he was last year with the Rams. They still have Deontay Johnson. Najee Harris is good. The offensive line's a lot better because they got Jones and they got Sayamalu. So I'm liking that. And their defense is always good. So I'm actually picking Pittsburgh to win that division right now. But
Ooh.
Baltimore's that team too. If I think they could be the team that they could sneak in there. I mean, Cincinnati, I'm worried about Burrow. I don't know when Burrow's coming back. I will say this, though. I did pick the Bengals to go to the AFC Championship game. So
yeah, they're being very coy. Like, we don't know if he's not healthy or they just don't want to even put him on a practice field until they get a deal done with him, or he doesn't want to go on a practice field until they get a deal with him. It's tough. I really think Pittsburgh's dangerous. I'm with you, man. Like, it would not surprise me if they win that division. I think they're going to be really good.
You know what worries me about the Bengals? I love their team, but they made a lot of changes in that secondary, and I'm just not sure how the safeties got. I mean, they're really banking on Max Hill.
Yeah, they lost some decent bodies. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, they still got Logan Wilson. I love the Miles Murphy pick, by the way. I think behind Hendrickson and Hubbard, that's going to be huge for them. But again, I talked about this with a lot of guys from Cincinnati last year. You just can't keep everybody, and they're prioritized. They want to keep Higgins. They want to keep Chase. Obviously, you want to keep Burrow. Joe Mixon restructured. Bates could have done that, but Bates wanted his money. And, you kept Logan Wilson. Hendrickson's back. Hubbard's back. They're still a really good team, but they're going to get battle tested again this year. But I think in terms of making the postseason run, lock me in for Cincinnati.
All right, last thing for me, Jeff, the Eagles game. Last I looked, I'm going to look at it as we speak right now. That line moved a little bit. It went from the Eagles -5 to the Eagles. It's down to 3.5. So that line has moved 1.5 points. Now we'll see what happens by the time we get closer to a week from Sunday. That could certainly, change a little bit, but I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be a tougher game than I think a good amount of Eagles fans just sort of had this penciled in as, hey, this is the easy part of the schedule. They're fine. I think it's a little tougher. What do you think?
So if I'm going to tell high school kids this, I'm going to tell professional athletes this. No one knows you suck the first game of the season. So that's what I tell teams I coach. No one knows if you guys are good or bad. The Patriots don't know if they're going to suck yet. And it's whole Tom Brady's whatever. He's coming back. I guess they're honoring him. I forget what they're doing there. But there's a reason CBS picked that game to be 425. They're expecting a good game. And I think the Patriots are – look, here's an interesting stat. The Patriots only allowed 7 rush touchdowns last year, and they got most of their guys back on that defense. Yep. The Eagles had the most rushing touchdowns last year. So that's where you're going to get the head-to-head there. And the Patriots got some good pass rushers. Matt Judon, Yuki. They got some guys there that can –
They were third in sacks. I mean, they can get after the quarterback.
Yeah, they got some guys that can flat out play, especially on defense. And I think the Eagles are going to be tested on offense. I think the Eagles score enough to win that game. I think it's going to be like a 27-20 type game.
Okay.
But, yeah, you're right. It's going to be a close game, but I just think Mac Jones isn't going to be enough to beat Jalen Hurts out of offense.
All right, Jeff, I got to ask you this. Who's more under the microscope for the Eagles? Is it Nick Sirianni, who has improved every year he's been a head coach, taking his team to within 3 points of a Super Bowl? Or is it Jalen Hurts, who was second in the MVP voting and who just got paid and who was the highest payer in the league for a few days?
I'll say Hurts is under a microscope because he's Jalen Hurts, and he is the franchise quarterback. And by the way, that's my bold prediction for MVP this year. Jalen Hurts is going to win it. I just think with Devonta Smith taking that step, A.J. Brown taking that step, that's year 2 together with both of them. Jalen's better in camp. I think they're going to run Jalen a lot too. Jalen's just he's a cheat code. He is. And he's going to be like Mahomes, I think, for a long time, where you're just going to be like, how did he do this? How did he do that? No one in Philadelphia is going to be shocked by it, but everybody else is. You know what? If the Eagles win 14 games again this year, which I think they can, I don't think they're going to, but if they do, Jalen's going to win MVP of this league. I think he's going to throw for 30 touchdowns and run for 10. That's how good I think of a player he is. So I think every week you're going to see him under the microscope, and I think him and Brian Johnson's going to be a match made in heaven, just like how him and Steichen was a match made in heaven. And I just don't see this offense missing a beat. I think this offense somehow got better than what they were last year.
I don't disagree with you about the MVP probabilities, but Rob and I discussed this a while back, the same topic, and I said there is such an infatuation with this guy named Patrick Mahomes. It was Brady for years. Now Patrick Mahomes can do no wrong in anything, and I think as long as that dude's upright and breathing, he will always be your lead guy. Everybody else is trying to catch when it comes to MVP voting.
I always said too with Mahomes, and keep in mind, this is what makes it tough. You could just pencil Mahomes in as MVP every year if you want to do it.
It's like Jordan. It's like Jordan now.
Yeah.
And I think the hardest thing for Mahomes is you got a guy like Jalen Hurts, who probably should have won it last year if he doesn't get hurt, that can rise to the top. Like, what if Justin Fields throws for 40 touchdowns this year and the Bears are good? Are you really going to take away votes from a guy like that? Or what if Joe Burrow just has an incredible season once he gets back? Or what if Dak Prescott somehow throws 45 touchdowns? Like, I mean, it can happen. I don't see it happening, but I think that's what it's going to take. And exemplary performance. I can't pronounce that word right now. But
exemplary,
exemplary. Thank you. Yeah. I can't pronounce that word.
I can't either, man.
But you're right.
Exemplary.
Yeah, and Jalen Hurts is going to be that guy. In my opinion, he's going to be that guy that you're going to look at and say, wow, Jalen Hurts got this many touchdowns this year. And I'm tired of hearing this. Oh, he has E.J. Brown. He has Devonta Smith. I go, do you see who Joe Burrow's got?
Yep.
Like, come on. Patrick Mahomes, you see who he's got? Kurt Warner lived off that for years, by the way.
Yep.
Kurt Warner was an MVP with Hall of Famers across the board. You need both. Just admit the quarterback's good and move on.
Well, the other thing that they do is they'll cling, like a guy like James Jones will cling to 22 touchdown passes and ignore the 13 rush. Who cares? It's how many times you score. It's not how you score or what way you do it. It's how many you score. Period.
The old adage in football and the old adage in basketball: 6 is 6 and 2 is 2. It doesn't matter how you get it.
Yep. Right on, man. Right on. Jeff, good stuff, man. Appreciate you jumping on with us always, my friend. Check him out at Jeff Kerr CBS. Good stuff, man. All across the board. And, Jeff kind of breaking things down Eagles wise on the 53-man roster today, if you want to check that out. Jeff, appreciate you, man. Thanks for a couple minutes.
Always a pleasure, guys.
All right, brother. That is Jeff Kerr hopping on with us for a couple minutes. Another one to note, Gunner, Tyree Jackson grabbed up by the Giants for their practice squad. That's just one of those you're like, boy, this guy's got size, talent. He couldn't stay healthy, unfortunately, here. But he ever gets right health-wise.
Oh, my goodness.
That one could be interesting to watch.
6'7". Now, imagine if he stays healthy and you put him on the opposite side of Darren Waller.
Oof.
Now, I'm just, I knew the Eagles probably said, you know what, we try, and I'm sure they were going to try to bring him back to the practice squad again, but I'm sure he's thinking, him and his representation, it's time for us to move on and try a different spot. And let's face it, outside of Darren Waller, the Giants have opens for auditions. They don't have a definitive number 2. Dude, the few times we saw this guy, and even in the one preseason game, he had a couple catches. You're thinking, this is a big dude that can run and has an incredible wingspan. And the knock on him is he can never stay upright. If somehow, some way, the Giants find a way to keep this dude upright and breathing, I hope he doesn't come back and haunt teams in the NFC East, man. I really do.
I got you. All right, we'll continue to talk about it, and we'll get to a former Eagle who is now a former Viking as well. We'll hit all of that when we come back. Don't go anywhere. That's Derek Gunn. I'm Rob Ellis. We're Sports Take, Jacob Sports YouTube Network. Let's talk about Jim Murray and Principal Financial Group. Yes. Look, trying to find the right person to invest with can be tough, right? And you don't understand all the ins and the outs of everything. Get it. You're not a financial manager. Jim Murray is, and he can help you get on the right path, just like he did for me, whether it's retirement planning, 401k review, insurance review. You might have a small business and you're trying to get your employee benefits off the ground. Anything like that, Jim can help you with. And he's a great guy just to sort of consult with. I've entrusted my IRA, my 401k rollovers with Jim, and I couldn't be any happier. You will be too. Give him a call, 610-996-4751, 610-996-4751. You could also email him as well, Murray, Murray.Jim@principal.com. That's Murray.Jim